Is it this or is it that? What's the Jewish answer? Yes. That's right. You got it. No, but which one? Is it this or is it that? Yes. How could it be both? How couldn't it be both? So the receptionist of a shul answers the phone, and there's a guy on the other end of the line. He says, "I'm looking for a one-armed rabbi." So the receptionist says, "You're looking for what?" The guy says, "One-armed rabbi." The receptionist says, "You're looking for a one-armed rabbi?" The guy says, you heard me correctly. I'm looking for a one-armed rabbi." The receptionist says, "Why, pray tell, are you looking for a one-armed rabbi?" He says, "Because the one I have right now, every time I ask him a question, he answers me, and then a second later he says, 'But on the other hand.' So, I need a one-armed rabbi." There's a famous story, true story that never happened. Those are the truest stories. I think a myth, a legend, whatever, a true story that never happened. That a couple is having a dispute, shalom bayis dispute, domestic harmony dispute. So they come to the Rav, and they meet with the Rav in his study at the Rav, at the rabbi's home. So first the husband says his grievances, and the rabbi hears him out. And the rabbi, after he hears the husband's side of the story, says, "You know what? You're right." The wife says, hold on a second. Don't I get to say my side of the story? He says, "Yeah, of course, go ahead." So the wife says her side of the story. The rabbi hears her out, and after she's all finished, the rabbi says, "You know what? You're right." The rabbi's own wife, the Rebbitzin, is overhearing this whole thing. She can't help herself. She sticks her head in the doorway, and she says, "They can't both be right." And the rabbi says, "You're also right." So we know the famous saying is 2 Jews, 3 opinions. And that can be used sometimes in a derisive way, in an underhanded way, to sort of make fun of the diversity of rabbinic opinions, and we can never really get our story straight, and why can't we just pick one version, and why is there always another version? We're familiar with this. And what I want to try to explain today is that, first of all, it's true. Like most stereotypes, or like many stereotypes, they're rooted in truth. It is true. The 2 Jews, 3 opinions thing is a real thing. But I want to explain, hopefully with God's help, that that's not a bug, that's a feature. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's not an accident, it's not a mistake, it's not something that happened because Jews are contentious and we like to argue. It's because, it's not because we can't get along. It's not because we lost the true thread of the tradition, and now we're just stumbling in the dark, and we're just trying to figure out, trying to replicate or reproduce what the true version was. It's not that at all. None of that. It's not a bug, it's a feature. So let me endeavor to explain this. First of all, I'll tell you what my great, I'm not sure how many greats, grandfather, the Megala Amukais, said. He said that Moshe is Moses. In English we say Moses, but Moshe in Hebrew is spelled Mem, Shin, He. 3 Hebrew letters. Mem, Shin, He. And that those letters of the name Moshe Kibul Torah Sinai. Moses is the one who received the Torah at Sinai from God directly. is an acronym. Moshe is an acronym for Moshe, Shammai, Hillel. That within the name of Moses is his own identity, and the identities, the personae, of perhaps the two rabbinic sages who embody the concept of machlokes, of rabbinic dispute, more than any other, Shammai and Hillel. We know that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, two schools of thought, two approaches to Torah, argued on almost everything. It was more common that they argued than that they agreed. And the point of the machlokes, the dispute between Shammai and Hillel, is not that this arose by accident, not that this was some type of a mistake that needed to be corrected, but that part of the authenticity, part of the genuine chain of tradition, just as much as God giving Torah to Moses at Sinai, from the very beginning, from the outset, embedded in the name of Moses himself, is this concept that there will arise a school of Shammai and a school of Hillel, and that they will have divergent approaches to the Torah. And furthermore, this is something that the Lubavitcher Rebbe points out, that we know from the Gemara, the Talmud tells us that although they disagreed, the sages of Hillel would state the law, first giving the opinion of their adversaries, first saying what Shammai's school holds. They would defer in that way, even though the halachic ruling is that the law follows the school of Hillel. The school of Hillel is the one who, quote unquote, is the winning side, and Shammai is what we call the dissenting opinion, and we say the opinion of Shammai first, and the school of Hillel themselves stuck to that. They would say Shammai's opinion first. So the Rebbe points out that in this saying of the Megala Amukes, that Moshe is the acronym Moshe, Shammai, Hillel, that even there you see whose name comes first. Shammai comes before Hillel. Shammai, who's the dissenting opinion, the one whose opinion halacha does not follow, and yet he's listed first. So it's not that you were the winner, you were the runner-up. I'm sorry, we took a vote, and we're going to follow your opinion, not your opinion. It's not what it is. That even a dissenting opinion, even the opinion that we don't follow, not only is valid, but in some ways has precedence and is mentioned before the opinion that we do halachically follow. Okay, now it's getting really confusing. So I'll tell you a parable. You know the parable about the blind men and the elephant? So the parable is there were 5 blind men that encountered an elephant. Of course, they can't see, so they experience the elephant by touch. So afterwards, they were asked to describe an elephant. So one blind man said, an elephant is very much like a boa constrictor. Another blind man said, an elephant is very much like the flap of a tent. One blind man said, an elephant is very much like a wall. One blind man said, an elephant is very much like an oak tree. And the last one said, an elephant's very much like a jump rope. How could they all be describing the same thing? How could they all be describing one entity, the same elephant? And the answer is that the blind man who said that the elephant is very much like a boa constrictor, he was touching the elephant's trunk. And the blind man who said an elephant's very much like the flap of a tent, he was touching the elephant's ear. And the blind man said an elephant's very much like a wall, he was touching the body. And the blind man said that the elephant's very much like the oak tree, he was touching the foot. And finally, the fifth blind man, the one who said that the elephant's very much like a jump rope, he was touching the tail. So who was right? They were all right. You're also right. It's not a joke, it's true. They were all correct. And yet, neither of them had the complete picture. None of them had all of the aspects and attributes and properties that make up an elephant. Okay, So think of it like this. There's an infinite God with an infinite Torah, or as the Zohar tells us, God and his Torah are one. So you have an infinite God with an infinite Torah. Now, this infinite God with his infinite Torah has made a decision to reveal this infinite Torah to finite minds. Tell me it's possible that a finite mind can glance at the infinite truth and take it all in at once. Not possible. Rather, what do? Each of us stands at a vantage point. The way the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad describes it in the introduction to Tanya, he says every single soul belongs to a soul root and has a different vantage point of the truth based on their spiritual proclivities. So every finite scholar, we're all finite, even if you're 1,000,000 times smarter than everyone else, that's still a finite number. Each finite scholar has a different angle, a different perspective, appropriate to his or her spiritual proclivities and personality. And then when you put it all together, now you have a picture of an elephant. So it's not that there's a dissenting opinion and we're going to be nice and also mention it. It's that we need the dissenting opinion in order to round out and complete our picture of the truth. And without the dissenting opinion, we wouldn't have a complete picture of the truth. Now you're going to ask yourself, if that's so, okay, great. So then halachically, let's follow them all. That's a different story. That's a different story. See, halacha is about behavior. It's about action. And action is governed by the laws of time and space. And the laws of time and space dictate that I can only take one action, not its opposite action, at one time. So for instance, Shammai has a very legitimate, valid, and true perspective that on the first night of Hanukkah, how many lights should you kindle? The first night of Hanukkah, Beis Shammai would say, 8, all of them, light them all. And then with each night, you light one less. And there's an explanation why. It's from a perspective of potential. Each night you've cashed in the potential and you have less potential left. Beis Hillel will say on the first night of Hanukkah, you light one because in actuality, he looks at it not as potential, but as actuality. So in actuality, you've only had one night of Hanukkah. On the second night, you've had 2, and you light 2. On the third night, you've had 3 nights, now you light 3. From a philosophical perspective, they're both equally valid and true. And in fact, I don't have the truth unless I have both of them. From a practical standpoint, which is what halacha is concerned with, I got to pick one. And not I got to pick one like it's up to my personal opinion, my personal preferences. There's a system. There's a system for how halacha is codified and how we pick the opinion that we follow halachically. But the fact that an opinion is followed halachically doesn't make it more true. It just makes it more practical. In fact, if anything were to be argued, I could tell you that in a way, the whole reason why Beis Shammai's opinion doesn't get implemented halachically is because, from a certain perspective, it's more true than the school of Hillel. And that's why it's less practical. And that's why also when Mashiach comes and the world is perfected, we will follow the rulings of Beis Shammai, because when the world is perfected, we'll be able to live up to the perspective of Beis Shammai. But until then, it's just too impractical. We can't live up to it. It's unattainable. So Beis Shammai is important for us to know as an idea, but practically speaking, we stick with the school of Hillel. So don't let it confuse you, the fact that the halacha is clear. The halacha picks a lane. The halacha picks one way to go because that's the nature of time and space. Halacha is dictating how we behave in time and space. You know, the Talmud speaks at length about how the Torah was given in the third month. I know we think of the first month as the one that's coming up a month from now, the high holidays, Tishrei, which is the month of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But actually, technically, that's the seventh month. When we count the months, we start from, you know what event is the beginning of the Jewish calendar? When we became a nation? Passover, right, the redemption from Egypt, the Exodus. So the first month is Nisan. And then the second month is Iyar. And the third month is Sivan. So the Talmud speaks at length about how the Torah was given in the month of Sivan, actually on the 6th day of the month of Sivan, 49 days after the Exodus. And the Talmud says it wasn't just that it was given in the third month. The Torah was given by a third child. Moses was the third child in his family. You know, Aaron and Miriam, who were the siblings, to a threefold nation. You have Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, a threefold Torah. You have the Torah, the prophets, and you have the writings. On the third day of separation, they did 3 days of separation to prepare themselves for the giving of the Torah at Sinai, and many other different threes, which the Talmud and its commentaries say are related to the giving of the Torah. And the question is, why is Torah so linked with the idea of threes? Why three? What's up with threes? So, you know what anyone born in the month of Sivan? Yeah? So you know what the zodiac sign is? I'm also from Sivan. I was also born in Sivan. You know what your zodiac sign is? The twin. Yeah, you got it, right, the twins. Not the Minnesota Twins, but the Gemini. Yeah, the Gemini, that's right. Gemini is plural, actually. Gemini is a plural word. Ta'imim, the twins. The zodiac sign, by the way, is rooted in Kabbalah. So that's why if you ever wondered why your zodiac sign doesn't exactly fit with the English months, like why is it like not exactly fitting? Because it doesn't fit, but it fits with the Hebrew months. So what's the idea of the twins? The idea of the twins is the idea of paradox. You know what you get when one PhD marries another PhD? A paradox. That's right. Paradox. Paradox. By the way, you want to know something cute? I'm born in Sivan, Chof Aleph Sivan, my birthday. You can get me a present. 21 Sivan, and my parents are both PhDs. So I'm a real paradox. And my daughter Tybel's out there, 23 Sivan. Good job, Tybel, being born in Sivan. So I'll tell you a joke, and I can tell how much you've matured because you're not even cringing from the public embarrassment. So, okay. Mirz Hashem, good news soon. Okay. Anyways, I'll tell you a joke that can only, it's a astrological joke, which can only be told by a Gemini. Doesn't make sense for any other astrological sign. It goes like this. I'll tell you the joke, and you'll see why. It can't be a Sagittarius or... Okay, here's the joke. I don't believe in astrology because I'm a Gemini, and Geminis don't believe in astrology. You get it? Nobody laughed, so nobody got it. Let me explain to you. I don't believe in astrology because I'm a Gemini, and Geminis don't believe in astrology. You get it? It's a paradox. That because of my zodiac sign, I have the personality of such a person who would be skeptical, who would reject astrology. So I'm telling you the reason I reject astrology is because of my astrological sign. Now you get it? Can I tell again, you'll laugh? Well, you have to explain it, right? So they say a joke's like a frog. If you dissect it, you understand it better, but it's dead. So okay. Anyway. So yeah, I'm a Gemini, and Gemini is paradox. What's paradox? Imagine you ask somebody who's been to Hawaii. Okay, they come back from a trip to Hawaii, and you say, "What's it like in Hawaii? What's Hawaii?" And they say, It's nice, it's warm, it's whatever. There's a breeze. No, but like the topography, what's the lay of the land? They say, oh, well, it's a city. I mean, we went to Hawaii. It's a city, like a normal city. Now you have another friend who just came back from Hawaii. You say, what's Hawaii? And they say, Hawaii, it's a beach, gorgeous beach. Oh, really? Then you have another friend who just came back from Hawaii. You say, what's Hawaii? They say, it's a rainforest, a lush rainforest. You say, well, one of these three guys is lying, because one is saying it's a city, one says it's a beach, one says it's a rainforest. Like, which one is it? And any intelligent person can understand that none of them are lying. Just one of them had an experience where he stayed in the city. He stayed in Honolulu the whole time. The other one hung out at the beach. And the other one went to the rainforest. If you get up in a plane, let's say you get up in a helicopter, and you look down, you could actually see them all at once. You could say, oh, there's the city, there's the beach, there's the rainforest. It's not a contradiction. Not a contradiction. But if you're on the ground, so you don't see the whole picture at once. So the guy on the ground says, I'm looking around. I see buildings. I'm in the city. Another guy's looking around. I see ocean. I see sand. I'm on a beach. Another guy's looking around. I see trees all around me. I'm in a rainforest. If you ask a person, tell me the truth, the conceptual, philosophical truth, and they tell you one version of the truth, and then you ask another person, tell me the truth, and they tell you the exact opposite of the truth. The philosophical term here is thesis and antithesis or antithesis. So one guy tells you a thesis statement. He makes a statement, A, this is the truth. The other guy comes in, he says the antithesis, the antithesis, the exact opposite truth, B. So you got A and you got B, and there's no compromise between them because they're absolute opposites. Is it A or is it B? Is it A or is it B? And like any Jewish question, now you're starting to get the hang of it. If you ask a Jewish person, is it this or is it that? What's the Jewish answer? Yes, that's right, you got it. No, but which one? Is it this or is it that? Yes. How could it be both? How couldn't it be both? If you want to nail it down to being A or B, that's not the whole truth. The truth is the emes. Emes is Aleph, Mem, Soph. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Mem is the very center letter. Soph is the very last letter. So Aleph, Mem, Soph. Emes means the entirety of the truth, the whole story. The whole truth. And if you want the whole truth, then I'm going to have to present you with contradictions. If there are no contradictions, it's not true. It's an oversimplification that you may be more comfortable with, but it's not the truth. Now, halachically, when we have to pick behavioral norms, like we were saying before, we'll pick one aspect of the truth to determine the behavioral norms. That's called halacha. But if you ask me conceptually, are the ideas of Beis Shammai any less credible, any less essential than the ideas of Beis Hillel? The answer is no. They're no less credible. They're no less essential. And in fact, Elu ve'elu divrei elikim chayim, like the Gemara says in Eruvin. You know what that means? Elu ve'elu divrei elikim chayim. These and these are the words of the living God. I'll explain to you what that means on two levels. On a simple level, you know what it means? It means they're both true. You're both right. Elu ve'elu divrei elikim chayim. They're both right. They're both the words of the living God. On a deeper level, you know what it means? You want the words of the living God? You want infinite truth, real truth, God's truth? Then elu ve'elu, you need both. Until you've got both, until you've got thesis and antithesis, you don't have the emes, you don't have the truth. And that's the connection between Torah and threes. Because you got A, which is the thesis. You got B, which is the antithesis. And then you have C, which is a heightened perspective that is lofty enough to have room for both of them. what we call synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And by definition, synthesis is a heightened perspective. I just want to make sure this is clear. When we talk about C, which is the synthesis, I don't mean lukewarm water, where you take hot water and cold water and you pour them into one bowl and now you got lukewarm water. That's compromise, which is nice, but that's not synthesis. Synthesis is Kabbalistically true tiferes. You see, you got chesed on one side, you got gvura on the other side, and never the twain shall meet. They're complete opposites. That which defines chesed is the very opposite of that which defines gvura. How can kindness and severity be the same thing? They can't. The very definition of them is that they're not each other. And then comes tiferes. Tiferes is not lukewarm water where you just pour them into a bowl and mix them together. Tiferes is a heightened perspective where they both operate, they coexist, and they retain their original identity without diluting each other at the same time. So let me bring it down. You're looking at me, okay, bring it down. Okay, so I'll bring it down for you. So I said that Kabbalistically, you have chesed and gvura and tiferes, right? You have kindness and severity, and tiferes is compassion. Okay, so I'll give you a practical example of what this means. We'll use the kindness and the severity, the emotional expressions of these concepts. If you walk down the street with a stack of $100 bills and you just start handing them out to everybody you pass, that's called chesed. That's kindness. You know, there's a term, chesed chinam, indiscriminate kindness. It's actually a redundancy because the definition of kindness is that it's indiscriminate. When God created the world, it was indiscriminate kindness because it was unearned. It was completely unearned because there was no one there yet to elicit the kindness. So you're walking down the street and you're just handing out $100 bills. That's kindness. Now, you walk down the street and you've got a pocket full of $100 bills and you're looking around and you say, I'm not giving it to anybody here. Nobody's getting this. This is my money. That's called gvura. Gvura is restraint. It's withholding. It's also din, which is judgment. You're making a judgment. I don't want to give anybody. Severity. So those are two opposites. One guy's walking down the street handing $100 bills. The other guy's walking down the street and he's holding on to his money. He won't give to anybody. What's rachamim, which is tiferes, which is the middle path, which is compassion? It's not a diluted form of the two opposites. It's an elevated form where both opposites coexist without diluting each other. It's where you walk down the street and you pass different people saying, hey, he looks okay, he looks okay. That person looks like they have a particularly difficult plight. Let me give to him. And you give the 100, or even you give all the hundreds to that guy. So there you have kindness, but it's not indiscriminate. You're making a judgment. Like gvura makes a judgment. I'm not giving, you're not worthy. But here, what is he doing? He's making the judgment. Who is the best recipient to receive? So that's why it's compassion as opposed to kindness. Kindness is you give everybody. Din, or judgment, restraint is you give nobody. Tiferes, or compassion, is you give the right guy. And you see there's a combination of real chesed, undiluted, and real gvura, undiluted, and they're both operating together for the maximum effect. Okay, so you probably noticed at the beginning of the davening in the morning, Shachris, in the morning prayers, right before the verses of praise, there's something called the Braisa de Rabbi Yishmael. It's you ever notice that the 13 methods of expounding the Torah? Yeah, sure. Okay, so you know that when the Torah was given, again, Torah is an infinite Torah, the written law is not infinite. Right? We finish it every year. We read through the whole thing. It's not infinite. It's finite. Right? So how can there be an infinite amount of meaning in a finite text? So that's another issue, how God figured that one out. Well, it's encoded. It's encoded. Okay? So then if it's encoded, how do you decode it? Well, there are rules how to decode it. And then the simple version how to decode it is 13 methods of expounding the Torah. And that's the Braisa de Rabbi Yishmael, the rules. The 13 rules of of the sage Rabbi Yishmael. And over there, what does he say? In fact, it's interesting. When you go daven in any shul, and the last thing you'll hear the chazan say before they'll say the Kaddish D'Rabbanan, before they start the verses of praise, is they'll say, "V'chein shnei chesuvim hamachachishim zeh zeh." Another method of Torah expounding is when you have two verses which contradict each other. It happens. You'll have one verse that says one truth. You have another verse that says an exact opposite truth. What do? Conundrum, right? Dilemma. What do? We found a flaw in our truth. No. Ad sheyava kosav ashlishi, until a third verse comes and resolves, is machriya, resolves the dispute between them. What is the kosav ashlishi? The third verse doesn't just mean numerically verse number 3. It's like you have one verse, you have two verses, you have the third verse. 3 in Torah philosophy is not just a number, it's a concept. 3 means an elevated perspective which is big enough and broad enough to include the opposites of 1 and 2. So now, when we say 2 Jews, 3 opinions, or maybe even more, an endless diversity of opinions, and that it's not a bug, it's a feature, what are we saying? We're saying that the essence of Torah really is the idea of, imagine yourself again, you're going up in that helicopter and you're looking down and you're seeing, wow, this place called Hawaii, there's the city and there's the beach and there's the rainforest, there's the volcano, there's the village. They're all true. And you put them all together and you got the truth. There's a story that's told about one of the great Torah teachers, the Alshich. He was a preacher, a lecturer. He used to give very colorful sermons. And he lived in Tzfas in the 1500s. He was a contemporary of the Arizal, of Isaac Luria. We know Isaac Luria, the great Kabbalist. The version of the Siddur, of the prayer book that he redacted is what we pray from in Chabad. Anyways, the city of Tzfas was a Kabbalistic city, and it wasn't just the Arizal. There was the Ramak, Reb Moshe Cordovero, who had taught there, and the Arizal students, chiefly the Rav Chaim Vital, who was his scribe and his successor. So there was a lot of Kabbalah going on in Tzfas. Now, also there were halachists. There was Rabbi Yosef Karo. Yosef Karo was the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch. So we have a lot of different approaches to Torah going on at the same time. And then we have the Alshich, he used to give the sermons in shul. So the story is told that the Alshich wanted to learn Kabbalah. So he went to go study from the Arizal. And every time he would go and study, every time he would sit at the Arizal's class, he would fall asleep. And he didn't understand why. He tried to rest, he tried everything. Maybe he tried an extra cup of coffee, whatever it was, nothing worked. Every time he would go to the class, he would fall asleep. So it pained him until he went to the Arizal and he said what his problem was. Every time I come to your class, I fall asleep and I want to learn Kabbalah. So the Arizal told him, he said, well, you know why this is happening to you. The Arizal wasn't just a Kabbalist in the sense of Kabbalistic scholarship, but he was a Kabbalist in the practical sense. He was able to see things. He was able to see things that we typically don't see. So he told the Alshich, he says, the issue is that your neshama, your soul, belongs to the world of drush. Drush means homiletics. which was what his forte was. When he would make his sermons, they were full of homiletics, like metaphors and stories, jokes, that kind of stuff where you have wordplay. It's good for sermons. It's good sermon material, but not the world of Soid. Soid means the secrets of the Torah. So the reason you're falling asleep is because that aspect of the truth is really not important for you, and just take it as a sign to just leave it alone. It's okay. You don't need to know that perspective. So it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. It's not that there are really different approaches. It's that there are different levels or layers of approaching the truth. You have to sort of think in a few dimensions here. It's not a flat plane. Think about it like this. It's not just breadth, it's also depth. So breadth would imply that you have an opinion and another opinion, and they're on the same level, but they have totally divergent ways of looking at one point. But then there's another dimension. There's the depth. There's a depth. Like it says that King Solomon used to have 3,000 metaphors for every topic. Rabbi Meir, the Tana, the sage of the Mishnah, had 300 metaphors for every topic. King Solomon had 3,000. What's the difference? The difference is, what Chassidus explains it is, that King Solomon could get you to understand an idea that was 3,000 leagues of incomprehensibility above you. Because the whole idea of a metaphor is a bridge from the familiar to the unfamiliar. Instead of the expert rolling in and boring you by talking about things that are unfamiliar, which it's not helpful. So metaphor is, I compare the real subject matter to something different that's not my actual topic, but it's similar enough in theme, and it's familiar to you. And then once you have that connection to that familiar topic, then I'm able to swing you over. We can pivot to the real subject, which I wanted to teach you. So if King Solomon wanted to teach you something that wasn't just one league of unfamiliarity beyond your cognitive ability, but 3,000 levels, he could do it. Because when he had 3,000 metaphors, that doesn't mean 3,000 metaphors wide, it means 3,000 metaphors deep. Rabbi Meir could do it at 300 levels. King Solomon could do it at 3,000 levels. It's the same truth, just being brought down level after level. I once saw in a talk that the Rebbe gave to children. The Rebbe used to clear out 770 from the adults, and they'd bring in children. The Rebbe would give talks. The Rebbe would deliver Torah lectures to children. And the Rebbe was saying that when you teach a child the truth, it's not a diluted version of the truth, God forbid. In the childish truth is embedded and encoded even the highest levels of truth. And it's just a matter of unpacking. So what the child learns at a young age, they grow up and they unpack it and they realize that what I really needed to know, I've known all along, and it's just an act of discovery, literally discovering, uncovering what I was already given, as long as I was given the truth from the outset. So when we talk about different ways of looking at the Torah, we're not even necessarily talking about divergent opinions on a scale of breadth. Sometimes it's on a scale of vertical integration, of depth. So one person approaches a subject and they're looking at it from a perspective of halacha, which means the practical. How are we going to do this? Another person's looking at it from a perspective of Kabbalah, what's happening in the higher realms, what's happening to the emanations of godliness when this mitzvah is performed. They're not really disagreeing, they're saying the same thing, albeit on different planes of reality. There's a letter somebody wrote to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and asked, why are there not so many parables in Chabad Hasidic teachings? And when I first read the letter, I was like, why is this person saying there's not so many parables? There's a metaphor. If you ever learned a Hasidic discourse, there's constantly there are metaphors. But then I realized what he meant was not short little metaphors. Like, we'll have short little metaphors like the nature of created existence is as naught as the identity of the sun ray within the sun. Okay, like a little visualization like that. That'll be like a metaphor you would find in Chabad Hasidus. But what you won't find, which you would find in other Hasidic traditions, is like an extended metaphor, a story with characters. There was a princess and she got kidnapped and she was in a tower and, an extended metaphor, a parable, like a fairy tale style. You won't find that in Chabad. So somebody wrote to the Rebbe and said, why don't we find that? So the Rebbe answered and said like this: when the Rebbeim of Chabad, the Rebbes of Chabad, when they use a metaphor, it's not a rhetorical device. Metaphor is an effective rhetorical device. Like I was saying before, it's an effective way of teaching somebody something that's unfamiliar to them by comparing it to something that is familiar. And then from the familiar, build a bridge to the unfamiliar. And you make the unfamiliar familiar. And that's, anyone who's a good talker, anyone who's creative can come up with a good metaphor. If it works, it works. If it helps the student to understand, then there was a good metaphor, if you're talking about it from a practical standpoint. So the Rebbe writes, that's not what the metaphors are when you learn a Hasidic discourse. If a Rebbe says a metaphor, he's not describing, listen to this, he's not describing the similarities between two different things. He's describing one thing as it coexists on two planes of reality simultaneously. So if you learn a discourse, for instance, that says that in the world of emanation, there are 6 emotional energies which deposit themselves within the attribute of sovereignty to give birth to creation, and very Kabbalistic. And in time, those are called the 6 work days, which deposit their work energy into the sovereignty of the Sabbath bride, the Sabbath queen. And in people, that is the masculine energy of the husband, which he brings home and delivers to the feminine energy of his wife. Those aren't I'm just giving an example. Those aren't 3 different things that are similar and therefore compared to each other. That's one truth as it is manifest on different planes of reality. So if I were to only give you one level, if I were keep it simple, don't confuse me, just give me one, just pick one, don't make us all confused. I can do that, but you're not getting the whole picture. You're not getting the whole picture. So that's why in Torah, the more complex, the more seemingly divergent and even contradictory the opinions are, the closer our finite minds are getting to grasping infinite truth. So this is what I say, that 2 Jews, 3 opinions is not a bug, it's a feature. And that Moses, who received the Torah at Sinai, is Moshe, Shammai, Hillel. That Shammai and Hillel isn't a mistake that came on later in history, but from the very outset, when God wanted to give his infinite truth to finite minds, he set it up this way that we would have divergent opinions, both in breadth and in depth, and that they're all true. They're all true. And the more of it we learn, the closer we are to the truth. I'll give you a practical takeaway. Because I understand this is lofty stuff. You come to the retreat. This always happens. inevitably, somebody will come up to me in the hallway and they'll say, Rabbi, I want to ask you something. Rabbi so-and-so said such and such. They want to get him in trouble, basically. And, we heard you say such and such. So tell us, you can tell us, no one's listening. Who's right? I promise you one thing. If you come to this retreat and you go to the sessions and you listen to the truth that is being taught here, if you don't leave every session with some glaring contradiction, you're not listening well enough. Listen for it. Listen for it. You will always be left with some disturbing question. But, how can they both? How can they? And there you found the infinity. If it's not a paradox, if it doesn't practically break the finite mind to try to grasp it, then it's not the infinite truth. We embrace that. We look for that. We love that. Tell you one last thing, take me 30 seconds. As a friend of mine, a journalist, not a Jewish guy, he wanted to know more about Jewish culture, and I took him to a rabbinical college in Crown Heights in Brooklyn. Big rabbinical college where you have 500 students sitting and studying. And the way they study is the way Jews traditionally have studied. Not so much with frontal teaching like this, but in chavrusas and study pairs. So you have two students at a little desk sitting across from each other and both looking over a copy of the Talmud and they're studying. So I showed it to him. I thought he'd be impressed. 500 students sitting here and studying. And we came out and I saw he looked like upset or like disturbed. So it was loud. It was loud in there. I couldn't talk to him. It's because you have all these students studying. It's very loud. I didn't even try to talk to him. And we got outside, so it was quieter when we got outside. And I said, was there something, didn't please you or something? He looked agitated. He's like, well, it's sad to me to see all of those students arguing. I said, they're not arguing, they're Jewish. So I'm going to look at you guys during the meals, and I better see some heated arguments. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
The Rohr Jewish Learning Institute has the largest collection of Jewish media online. Hit subscribe for more.